Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 4, Text 2. Evam parampara praptam imang rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashtaf parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Purport: it is clearly stated that the Gita was especially meant for the saintly kings, because they were to execute its purpose in ruling over the citizens. Certainly Bhagavad-gita was never meant for the demonic persons who would dissipate its value for no one's benefit and who would devise all types of interpretations according to personal whims. As soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motives of the unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to re-establish the disciplic succession. 5,000 years ago, it was detected by the Lord Himself that the disciplic succession was broken, and therefore He declared that the purpose of the Gita appeared to be lost. In the same way, at the present moment also there are so many editions of the Gita, especially in English, but almost all of them are not according to authorized disciplic succession. There are innumerable interpretations rendered by different mundane scholars, but almost all of them do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, although they make a good business on the words of Sri Krishna. This spirit is demonic, because demons do not believe in God but simply enjoy the property of the Supreme. Since there is a great need of an edition of the Gita in English as it is received by the Parampara, disciplic succession system, an attempt is made herewith to fulfill this great want. Bhagavad-gita, accepted as it is a great boon to humanity, but if it is accepted as a treatise of philosophical speculation, it is simply a waste of time. Yeah, everyone please turn off your cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone, right? So everyone please take it out of your pocket or your bag and turn it off best, or put it on silent mode. Second best. Actually the best thing is just to throw the damn thing away. But as everyone's highly attached to that, I guess it's not a practical suggestion. This is a very grave statement that Krishna makes here. Of course, everything that he says in Bhagavad-gita is grave. Even the jokes are grave. There are jokes in Bhagavad-gita. Well, somewhat humorous. Prahasanneva bharata. We hear that. Tamuvacha Hrishikesha Prahasanneva bharata Senayo Ubhayamade Vishidantamidang vachaha. We find that in the beginning, before Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita, he was prahasan, he was chuckling a bit. Arjuna was all depressed. Oh, I don't want to fight. And Krishna was chuckling to see the foolishness of Arjuna. But there's an underlying gravity, just as Srila Prabhupada would sometimes make jokes, but not just jokes for the sake of joking. It's not that Srila Prabhupada got a joke book from a store and just read them to make his lectures more fun. But his joking also was to make a point, grave point of the nastiness of material life, the foolishness of material life, the foolishness of various ways of thinking, and the importance of understanding the actual truth of Krishna consciousness. For instance, Srila Prabhupada would say that the scientists claim that in future they will make life from matter is like giving a post-dated check. That here you are, I'm hereby give you a check. Bipin Bihari Das, I'm now giving you a check for $20 billion. Wow, wonderful! And it's dated on the 27th of June, 21,011. Just 100 years or so. So, won't help you very much because you've already gone back to Godhead by then, we hope. So it sounds very good. Yeah, we're going to make life out of matter, but then, well, in future, some undefined future, maybe after 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but it's always in the future, just like Jesus is coming, but it's always in the future. Just the future keeps on getting put back. So Srila Prabhupada pointed out this cheating. Why did Srila Prabhupada point it out? Why didn't he just speak about Krishna? Krishna is so nice, so wonderful. What business did he have pointing out the cheating of the scientists? Because the scientists are cheating people into thinking that life is a product of matter. Therefore, there is no spiritual life, there's no spirit. Therefore, there's no God. And in this way, people become atheistic. So, the message of Bhagavad-gita is grave. This is a very grave statement of Krishna's, that the science of yoga, or the science of one's relationship with the Supreme, is lost. Now, if you think about it, at that time in the Mahabharata, or the time in which most of the action recorded in the Mahabharata is pertaining to, it was a lot more Vedic than nowadays. There were kings who were ruling according to dharma. The consideration of dharma is central to Mahabharata. Even Duryodhana claimed to be following dharma. Of course he wasn't, but he claimed to. Whereas in the modern age, people, what do they know about dharma? There's no, especially here in the Western world, there's no concept even of dharma. And in India, which is supposed to be the land of dharma, dharma bhumi. But how often in a day does the average person speak about dharma? They have no idea. The goal of life is just to make money, that's all, for everyone. Pretty much, that's the goal of life for everyone. From the very beginning of life, they get sent to the pre-kindergarten so that they can get pre-education. And by the time they're about 6 years old, they're walking off to school carrying a huge pile of books, with all full of useless information, which they have to cram into their heads, so that they can eventually, when they come out of this torture called the education system, they come into another. They're prepared for another torture, which is called getting a job, and they just spend their whole life like this. No idea of dharma. So it appeared that 5,000 years ago in Bhagavad-gita was spoken that there were Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, there were yagyas being performed, all the basic components of a dharmic society were there. Yagya, dana, tapa. This performing sacrifices, giving charity. That means not charity to dogs' homes, but giving charity to qualified brahmanas. Nowadays, where are the qualified brahmanas? Nowadays, the charity goes to Harvard University or something like this. We're not brahmanas, but They have replaced Brahmanas, the so-called intellectual class, who are just hirelings of the moneyed, of the very rich class. So yajna, dana, tapasya, austerity. And no one has any idea of austerity nowadays. I mean, of course, in Canada there's forced austerity for about 6 months a year with the snow. But the idea that one should perform tapasya for purification is not there at all. The very idea of purification, there's no idea in modern society. So that was there at the time Bhagavad-gita was spoken 5,000 years ago. At least some idea of it was there. But nevertheless, Krishna said that this science of yoga, which Srila Prabhupada translates in the next verse, is that the science of the relationship with the Supreme, it was lost. So, what does that mean? What is that science of one's relationship with the Supreme? Well, the science of one's relationship with the Supreme, which is mentioned in the next verse, is indicated by Krishna. What that is indicated also in the next verse. When Krishna says, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hietaduttamam. I will speak to you, Krishna says, because you are my bhakta. So that's indicated. Here gives an initial indication that the subject is bhakti. The actual subject is bhakti. That is the yoga that Krishna says is lost. And that becomes very clear at the end of the 6th chapter, where Krishna describes, principally in that chapter, he describes the physical, mechanical system of yoga, dhyana yoga, meditation. Well, in various yogas he discusses and summarizes that yoginam api sarvesham madgatein antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam sameyuktatamomataha. And of all the different types of yogis, Krishna says, that one who has madgata, antaratmana, who has made their, in the inner core of their being, has gone to me. It's a very poetic way of saying one whose thoughts are completely absorbed in me. Madgateina antaratmana. Shraddha, and with great faith worships me. Shraddhavan bhajate yaman. That is the best yogi, Krishna says. In other words, the bhakti yogi is the best. Faithful, Shraddhavan. Of course, Shraddha in the Western world, they think it's all belief. What do you believe in? But the word Shraddha, that doesn't exactly mean belief. Do you believe? Just like I saw as we were driving up, there was the Slovak Evangelical Lutheran Church. So do you believe in the Slovak Evangelical Lutheran Church? I mean, Lutherans already, the Catholic Church itself is like the original church, and they don't teach exactly what Jesus says. And then Lutheran is a deviation from that. And then Evangelical Lutheran, that's another twist. And then Slovak, so it's like, how many times have they distorted and changed the message? So, people think that, well, I believe in this church. Actually, I don't think they have all these different churches. I think most of the people who go, they don't know what the difference is between the teachings of one church and another. Somehow or other they end up in one church. But they say, often people ask, do you believe? Do you believe? Because they presume that religion must be just belief. Because there is no science of yoga science of spiritual understanding. Therefore, people think that religion is belief. But Krishna doesn't stay here in Bhagavad-gita, I'm going to tell you something which you believe it or you're going to burn in hell. He doesn't say any such thing. And Arjuna said, well, everyone says that, so why should I believe you? Every different church and sect, they all say it's our way and you just have to believe it. And if we ask why, they'll say, well, if you don't, you go to hell. And then everyone says that. Now, how will you know what's what? It's not scientific. So the word Shraddha, it means that in which one places one's heart. It doesn't just mean some just blind belief. And Krishna doesn't recommend that in Bhagavad-gita. He explains to Arjuna what is the science of one's relationship with the Supreme. So, as I was saying, it's a very grave statement that Krishna says that this science is lost. People don't know what is the purpose of the culture they're living in. The purpose of that culture. That culture, like I said, there were brahmanas performing sacrifices. There were kshatriyas who were ruling according to dharma as best as they knew. The society appeared to be what we might call Vedic. But Krishna said, because the knowledge of that is lost, therefore, Krishna says, I will speak that again to you, Arjuna. So the culture doesn't in and of itself constitute the essence. And if one does follow the culture but doesn't have the spiritual science right, then one doesn't get the same result. Just like you may have a chemical factory, but if you don't have very good chemical engineers, then you don't say you're supposed to be producing some kind of plastic. But the chemical engineers, they don't really know what they're doing, and so they process it at the wrong temperature, or they have the wrong admixture of chemicals, then the plastic won't be as it's required to be. It has to be a very specific process. So everything may go on and it looks like, well, it's a chemical factory and we're putting in the different chemicals here, but the end product is useless. So we see here in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna, he speaks about various misunderstandings of the Vedic culture, such as worship of various demigods. Krishna repeatedly in Bhagavad-gita says that those who worship the demigods, they get a different result. Yanti deva vrita devan. Those who worship the demigods, they get a different result to those who worship Krishna. Those who worship Krishna, madhyajinopi yanti mam, they come to me. And those who worship pitris, they go to the pitris. And those who worship ghosts, they become ghosts. And then people who think that, well, everything's just all one, they're all many gods. All these things are discussed here in Bhagavad-gita, and it's still going on today. Under the umbrella of Hinduism. Various misconceptions about what is the actual purpose of life. Or a very good example of how the culture is followed, but in the wrong way, is there was one person who died recently. His followers called him Bhagavan. There are so many followers who claim someone to be Bhagavan. He used to have long, frizzy hair, and it all fell out, and he was in a wheelchair for some time, even though he was claiming to be Bhagavan, although we never heard of any Bhagavan, real Bhagavan, in a wheelchair. So anyway, it appears, from what I've seen, I never went to his, although I've traveled all over India, I made a specific point to keep as far away as possible from his so-called holy place. But from what I understand, they perform yagyas there, they have pujas, and it has all the semblance of a genuine Vedic holy place. But the problem is, they worship him. So if the yagyas and the pujas and everything was going on with Krishna in the center, that would be very good. But with him in the center, you get a completely different result. Instead of getting a pious result, you become sinful by worshipping such a sinful person who appropriates the respect and the worship which is meant to be offered to Krishna. Or it can even be offered to different demigods. Demigod worship is not outside Vedic culture, but it's avidhi purvakam, Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita. It's not really the proper thing to do. It's not wholly condemned, but to worship someone as Bhagavan, another thing they do, tam venkatachalapate tavasu prabhatam. Who's been to Tirupati? Yeah. No, North Indians, is it? So that's very famous in South India, this Venkatesh Suprabhatam. This song for Suprabhatam means good morning. It's a good morning song for Venkatesh, Balaji at Tirumala. So there's Sanskrit slokams for waking him up. So this last line, they do all the song, praising him, various shlokas, praising him means Venkatesh, which means Krishna, Balaji, the deity, very famous. But they change it to put his name instead of Venkatesh. Extremely sinful. So everything seems to be nice. It all, you see, all very pakka and doing all the pujas, but they're offering it to him, who is a demon. He's like this Pondraka, described in Srimad Bhagavatam, or Hiranyakashipu. He wants to declare himself as God. So everything seems very nice, but the result is no pious result. Anyone who has any sympathy for such a demon, they must go to the same place, just like if you worship the demigods, you go to the demigods. If you worship the pitris, the forefathers, you go to them. If you worship the ghost and spirit, you become a ghost and spirit. If you worship Krishna, you go to Krishna. And if you worship this so-called Baba, then you go where he goes. And there's no way that he's going anywhere even slightly auspicious. So, how could that be? How is it that people who are performing yagyas and pujas, and they seem to be piously inclined, how could they get into such a bad situation that the actual science of one's relationship with the Supreme, which means, as Krishna describes at the end of Bhagavad-gita, Sarvadhaman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Raja, fully surrendering to Krishna, how could they be so misled? If all the shastras are there, the culture is there, how could they misunderstand? What happened? How does the science of yoga or the knowledge of Bhagavad-gita, how does that get distorted? What happens? Well, we get a clue, again from the next verse, that Krishna says, I'm speaking to you, Arjuna, because you are my devotee, and therefore you can understand this subject clearly. In other words, others are not expected to understand it clearly. At the beginning of the 7th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, Maya sakta manaf parata yogam yunjan vadashaya asangshayang samagrang mang yata gyasisi tachchinu. Now hear from me, Krishna says to Arjuna. How, with hear from me with your mind attached to me, being situated in yoga, how you hear from me in this way, you will be free from all doubts. Arjuna was doubtful. He thought it was wrong to fight. He didn't immediately accept everything Krishna said. How you can be free from all doubts, and you hear from it. Just listen very carefully in the way that you can hear properly. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he spoke of all the Bhagavad-gita shlokas that he spoke on. On this verse in particular, he spoke more times than any other verse, and quite considerably more. from the recorded lectures that we have. Even though he quoted, the verses he quoted most would probably be this, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumarang yovanang jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatu namuhyati, and then manmana bhava madbhakto, this he would quote, and sarvadhaman parityaja. But the verse that he formally chose to spoke on more than any other was this verse, hear from me, Krishna says. Well, Arjuna was already hearing from Krishna. So why was Krishna emphasizing that? And why was Prabhupada emphasizing that? Out of all the verses. Because if we don't hear properly, we don't get the message properly. There may be the message, if it's not perfect, if it's not absolutely to the point, then we don't get the right result. Just like in the chemical factory. If the proper admixture of chemicals is not there in the proper proportions, if the temperatures are not correct, there are so many then if the purity of the chemicals is not there, then you may be attempting to make various polymers or whatever, but you get a different result. So in the same way, if the speaker doesn't give the right message, then there's no way that those who hear are going to get it. So the speaker has to be correct. Well, Krishna is the right speaker. He's not speaking anything wrong. And Prabhupada is presenting Krishna's words as they are, as it is. So there's nothing wrong with what Prabhupada said. It's fully correct. Then, how could anyone get it wrong? If Krishna speaks it right, Prabhupada speaks it right, then how can anyone get it wrong? And why is it, we may ask, that there are so many Prabhupada disciples who are not following in the way that Srila Prabhupada taught them to follow? What went wrong? Well, there's nothing wrong with what Krishna says. There's nothing wrong with what Prabhupada says. But there's the wrong is within us. We don't hear properly. Now what does that mean? Most people can hear. You can all hear what I'm saying now. But hearing is not simply a matter of picking up sounds within the eardrum. When Krishna says, hear from me, he wasn't recommending that one should hear carefully. Doesn't mean that one should go and get some Q-tip and scrape out the wax from your ears, or turn the mic up so that you're deafened by the sound. But hearing means, just like Srila Prabhupada said, before the spiritual master, one should be like a blank slate. In other words, one should have no preconceptions. Of course, everyone has preconceptions. That's the problem. That we already think we know what is right. We have certain ideas of what is right and what is wrong, which is required to some extent. To accept that we need to hear in the first place, that is required. To have a preconception that ultimately reality is good, that is required. If we're already completely skeptical, then we can't hear at all. So some willingness to hear is required. But at the same time, one should be like a blank slate, or otherwise it's said that one should be a fool before the spiritual master. One shouldn't think that I'm going to have a discussion on equal terms. One should hear very carefully, understanding that I need to learn. Krishna and Arjuna were friends, but when Arjuna became bewildered, then Krishna took the position of guru. They were no longer in a friendly relationship. then Arjuna has to listen submissively and try to hear and understand. Now, Arjuna has been selected by Krishna to speak this knowledge of Bhagavad-gita to. And there's so many other people who could have been the recipients of the knowledge of Bhagavad-gita, but Krishna specifically spoke to Arjuna. Many others, if they were the recipients of Bhagavad-gita, and even today we see that, because they have some other motive, some other intention than that to serve Krishna. Therefore, even if they hear Bhagavad-gita, they don't get it. They don't understand the message properly. Now, of course, Arjuna, he was superficially at least trying to avoid serving Krishna. But because Krishna said, "You are my devotee and my friend, therefore I'm speaking Bhagavad-gita to you." So Arjuna, he accepted, "I'm a devotee and a friend," but his intent at that time to avoid the fight. Due to that, he was not acting as a devotee or as a friend. He wanted to remain as a devotee and as a friend of Krishna while avoiding the fight, which was his required service. So it's not enough just to say, "I'm a devotee and I'm chanting Hare Krishna," but we have to do what Krishna wants, even if we don't want to do it. That will be for our benefit and for everyone else's benefit. And not to do that is not bhakti. We may think, well, you see, we're chanting Hare Krishna, but you can be chanting Hare Krishna and not properly doing bhakti, if it's not exactly in the way that Krishna wants. As much as we are performing bhakti according to the prescribed process and for Krishna's pleasure, that is actually bhakti. And as much as we have our own ideas, our own mixed up desires, or we don't perform it according to the proper process, then it's not bhakti, even though it may have all the semblance of bhakti. And that extreme example is there of bhakti to sambhava. So they may be following all the rules and rituals very nicely, but it becomes totally perverse because it's directed toward the wrong person. But even if it's directed to the right person, Krishna, and done in the right way, but our motive is not purely to satisfy Krishna, then again, it's not fully bhakti. Therefore Krishna says, "Sarva dhamman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja." We can only fully surrender to Krishna if we give up all other ideas, motivations. Only then is it possible. So, different people may hear what Krishna says, but they don't receive it as Arjuna received it. How did Arjuna receive it? Sarvam etadritang manye yanmang vadasi Keshava. O Keshava, Krishna, Arjuna said, I accept as true everything you say to me. So many people will say that, yes, we accept as true what Krishna says, but they don't take the message as it is. They twist it because they have their own idea. They twist it in various ways. In Bhagavad-gita, it's completely clear that Krishna is recommending surrender to Him. That is the message of Bhagavad-gita, if we just take the message as it is. But most people, or most commentators on Bhagavad-gita, they say, well, all the paths are the same. There's karma, jnana, yoga, there's physical yoga and bhakti, and all the paths are the same. But that's not what Krishna says. Krishna says, Manusha Partha Sarvashaha. And this in that verse. Yayata mang prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamiham mama vartmanu vartante manusha pata sarvasha. Krishna says, as they surrender to me, I reciprocate. All men are on my path in all respects. So we may take that to mean, well, whatever you do, it's all the same. But that's misquoting. Because elsewhere in Bhagavad-gita we find that those who worship the demigods go to the demigods, those who worship the pitris go to the pitris, those who worship the ghosts become ghosts, those who worship Krishna go to Krishna. It's not all the same. Urdhvam gachanti satvasta, madhye tishtanti rajasaha, adho gachanti satvasta. What is that? Adho gachanti jaganya guna vritista, adho gachanti tamasa. Those who are in sattva gun, they go up. Those who are in raja gun, they stay in the middle. Those who are in the abominable tamoguna, the mode of ignorance, they go down. So it's not that everything, whatever you do, it's all the same. It's not. That's a ridiculous proposition. That goes against all common sense and all philosophy. And there's no need of any philosophy whatsoever if we think like that. And that's maybe why Hindus in the modern age are so stupid, because of this stupid philosophy that all paths are the same and it's all the same, and then people think, well, no need of any philosophy and just whatever you do, it's all the same, and then they go off to some Baba who takes them to hell. How could you be so stupid when Krishna is clearly the Supreme Personality of Godhead? If we just examine a little bit the tradition and the culture, what to speak of the Shastra, you have very beautiful feet. You want to sit on a chair rather than showing your feet to the deity? So clearly Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in forgetting Krishna, they say, oh, that was Krishna, now there's Baba. How can you be so stupid? I mean, these are often supposedly intelligent people, PhDs, scientists, but completely stupid. When it comes to spiritual matters, it's difficult to imagine how people could be so stupid. Because they have wrong motivation. They don't hear from Krishna. They don't hear from Prabhupada. So we have to be very careful in our Krishna consciousness society also, because Prabhupada, he often spoke this, Maya sakta manaf partha, hear from me, tat shrinu, hear from me. Prabhupada would always emphasize, hear from me. So many people, they like to keep Prabhupada's picture on the wall and sing Jai Prabhupada, and all right, that's very good. But the essence of being a follower of Prabhupada is not simply to sign your name in the book, I'm a member of ISKCON, I go to the ISKCON Satsanga, and I'm initiated, and I have a picture of Prabhupada, and I sing Jai Prabhupada very loudly. But what does Prabhupada say? We have to listen and take that Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arna Koriho Manayasha, and take that, what Prabhupada says, as a fact. Try to understand it, even if we don't like it, or even if we find it difficult to understand. We have to take that as it is, because if we don't take it as it is, then axiomatically it becomes as it isn't. And if it is not as it should be, then we end up in the same mess that we've been in since time immemorial, called Janma Mrityu Jaravi Adhi Duk. And Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita to take us out of this mess. But if we think we'll cheat Krishna by, well, I'll take the instruction, just what I like, but I don't like all this stuff about, giving up this and giving up that and following this and following that. So I'll just interpret it in my own way, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's just like if you think in the chemical factory that, well, we'll just use cheap chemicals. You can buy cheap chemicals, but if it's adulterated, then you don't get good quality products. You don't get the real thing. So it requires some sincerity, not to take Krishna's message and just mess it all up with our speculative intelligence and come up with something different. Or another thing we can do is just ignore Bhagavad-gita altogether, like most so-called Hindus. They have no idea what's in Bhagavad-gita, or they might come up and say, yes, I know Bhagavad-gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glane bhav. They know one verse. And they, yes, I know Bhagavad-gita. They have no idea what it means or the context of it. But they like to, yes, I know. Or I'm sending my children to learn the shlokas. Well, what about you? Don't know. So Prabhupada, he preached this Bhagavad-gita as it is, which we need to know if we are to be devotees of Krishna. Then we need to know how Krishna tells us to be devotees, and that is in Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna was Krishna's devotee, but he was bewildered. Devotees are not bewildered. Arjuna was speaking nonsense. He was thinking in a wrong way. So Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita to bring Arjuna out of ignorance. So if Arjuna thought, well, I'm a devotee, so I'll just do what I like and I'm a devotee. But Krishna didn't accept it. Krishna said, you have to do what I like, what I want you to do. That's what it means to be a devotee. So if we think, well, I'm a devotee, so everything's okay because I'm a devotee. But that's not how Krishna taught to be a devotee. Krishna taught that you have to understand what he says very clearly and follow that. Then you can be a devotee. Otherwise, to be a devotee in name only, Krishna doesn't accept. So we have to hear very carefully. We should all study this Bhagavad-gita as it is very carefully if we actually want to be a devotee of Krishna. Not mess it up, reinterpret it, or just, I like this bit, I don't like that bit. It doesn't work. Therefore it's called the science of one's relationship with the Supreme, which we have to hear very carefully to understand and apply that in our lives. Hare Krishna. Any question about this, please? Yes. Is there another microphone? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, well, as there's a bit of a delay in getting a microphone, I can suggest to you that I see mostly all Indians here. So it's nice that you're coming to Krishna. But Krishna is not India. Don't think that this is just an Indian culture. You have all come here for making money to this land, but now you've had the good fortune to discover Krishna. So share that with others. Please take these Bhagavad-gitas door to door. Distribute these books. It's not enough that you just take to Krishna consciousness for yourself or for your own community. Don't make it a Hindu culture, Hindu cult. Spread it to everyone. Take it out. Otherwise, what's the use of your coming to Canada? If it's only for making money, then it's of no ultimate value. Don't keep it, Krishna boxed up in a Hindu box. He is Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He is the Supreme Lord of all planets and all people. So So it's your good fortune by your cultural background that you're more inclined to Krishna than others, but make them fortunate also, just like Prabhupada. He came to the West for the specific purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness. So now you're all here and you're getting the benefits of this movement that Srila Prabhupada started here in the West. So please take that out to others also. You can go out at the weekend or in the evenings, go door to door, take the books door to door and ask people to purchase these books. That will be for their great benefit. There's one party of brahmacharis here, they're traveling all over America distributing these books. So they've given their whole life for this. You please at least give some hours every week to help others who are suffering in ignorance for lack of knowledge of Krishna. Did we ever get another mic? No. All right, well, speak loudly then.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. You mentioned about people not hearing correctly, maybe twisting, but I would hear people say that Prabhupada said, you boys are very intelligent. You use your intelligence to spread this movement. Meaning you do your own way to spread this movement.
Yeah, that's a good point, that people, one can hear and twist the message. But on the other hand, so we're just supposed to accept the message, but on the other hand, we are supposed to use our intelligence to understand it. So, actually, it is required to understand it with one's intelligence. It's quite opposite to this idea that, well, you just believe. Just believe means switch off your intelligence. But we say the opposite. That without applying the intelligence, how can one understand the teachings of Bhagavad-gita, which require to be intelligently understood? How Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many sub-controllers, but Krishna is the supreme controller. How the consciousness is polluted by lust. So it requires some intelligence to understand all these points. And everyone thinks they understand. But those whose consciousness is polluted by wrong desires or personal motives, they won't understand this. So intelligence is to be applied, but one should be sincere to understand this message. If one is insincere, then one will tweak the message to one's own personal understanding. So one should hear from me carefully, Krishna says to Arjuna. That means you should try to, Krishna says to Arjuna, you try to understand what I am saying, not what you want me to say, or what you think I should say, or what you think is right. Hear what I have to say, Krishna says, because he is the supreme authority. So that doesn't mean switching. It actually doesn't mean switching off the intelligence. It means using the intelligence in the best possible way. And actually, any other way of accepting this message is not intelligent. If we reinterpret it in our own way, that is a misuse of intelligence, which is not intelligent because it works against our own real self-interest. Anything else? Yeah.
I approached a few ladies in my building to check with them if they would like to come and get together and read Bhagavad-gita. And one of the ladies from South India, she told me that we believe in God, but my husband would also not like me to be too much involved in all this.
We believe in God. That's a stupid statement. We believe as if He's dependent on us. If we believe in Him, He exists. If you don't believe in Him, He doesn't exist. It's up to you. You can believe in Him or not. This idea, a very wrong idea. That you believe or not believe, it's a personal choice, but we are controlled by Him. At the time of death, we say, now you're going to get the results of your previous activity. Well, I don't believe in that. It doesn't matter what you believe. We are subjects to the laws of the universe, which happen to be administered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whether we believe or not, it doesn't make any difference. Of course, we don't expect the average person to understand all these points, because people spend their whole lives watching TV, selecting different varieties of toenail polish and various activities which are a long way from anything to do with the actual purpose of life. People are absorbed in frivolities. But anyway, we have to try to save them. We shouldn't turn the Hare Krishna movement into another frivolity, that it's all festivals and singing. Of course, that should be there. But if there's no serious attempt to understand the message of Bhagavad-gita, then it's not Prabhupada's movement, because Prabhupada was always very seriously speaking the message of Bhagavad-gita and trying to get his disciples to understand that. So, what was the next silly thing she said? I believe in God. Yeah, I believe in God. And then they'll have their puja room with all the babas and bappas and ammas and appas and maybe a Krishna in there somewhere. It's just a complete mess. They don't even know what the word God means. They think it's a word you can define in any way you like, according to your own, whatever you think. So they need education in Bhagavad-gita as it is. Yeah.
So she said that she doesn't want to get very much deep into God, and she said, my husband, I don't think so he would give me permission. I was very shocked because they are a Hindu family from South India.
Well, you think everyone in South India is like a great rishi or something? You ever been to South India? Maharashtra is actually South India. You know that? You don't know that. According to the Puranic division, that's Maharashtra is part of the Pancha Dravida. I think it was the British who made this idea that they're the four major languages, and that they made this idea to separate what they call the Dravidians from the Aryans with the Aryan invasion theory and all this. It's all bogus. Traditionally Maharashtra, which is where you're from, right, is part of South India. So, just for your information, everyone in South India is not seriously interested in the purpose of life. They're a bit more, overall they seem to be a bit more cool-headed than in North India. But more or less everyone, making money and that's it. It's the same as pretty much everyone all over the world, influenced by this modern consumeristic culture. Work hard, get money. That's the goal of life. Be a success. This word in India. People talk about success a lot more than they do about God. If you go, God means you go to the temple and pray to God to make you a success. Success means you get some miserable job working in some company which pays you more than other people in other miserable jobs. That's all. That's called being a success. Of course, you might say that I'm very negative, but my analysis of India is that people are a long way from the actual purpose of life. And actually that's there all the time. It's not, although we say that India is dharma bhumi or punya bhumi, but throughout the ages, most people are materialistic. It's just that previously they were more pious about it, that's all. They believed that by worshipping various gods, you'd get various material results. That's why Krishna speaks against that in Bhagavad-gita. Manushanang sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhe. In Bhagavad-gita, which Krishna spoke 5,000 years ago, and people were presumably in general more pious than now, most people, Krishna says, are not interested in spiritual understanding. And yatatamapi siddhanam kaschin mangveti tatvataha. And of those, even those who have come to some platform of spiritual perfection, hardly one knows Krishna in truth. So actually it's a very good time now, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, to spread this Krishna consciousness. By the chanting of Hare Krishna, people can be delivered from their miserable materialistic way of life. But don't expect that people are just going to take it very easily. But better you can, if these books are distributed, then you'll get good people coming. When the books are distributed, then people will come. Those who are sincere and read it, they'll come. That's the best way to spread Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada always said, distribute these books. And then those who read the books, they can understand, anyone who reads Prabhupada's books, they can understand that this is completely different from any other book that I ever read before. It's completely different from anything else that I've ever encountered before. Even so-called religious books, even so-called Hindu books. The message that Srila Prabhupada gives is clear, direct, and it's real. It's realistic. It realistically describes our position in the material world and how we require to be connected with the Supreme Controller who is Krishna. Everything's very clear. Whereas all these bogus people, they say, well, everything's all one. What does it mean? It's the ineffable oneness. What does it all mean? All paths lead to the same God. It doesn't make any sense. It's just for cheating people. So, as Srila Prabhupada said, anyone who reads these books, they'll become a devotee. So best is to distribute the books. Prabhupada always emphasized. Our movement in ISKCON in India, from what I can see from the general perspective, it's a temple building movement. We build temples. But building temples isn't our aim and object. Our aim and object is to bring people to Krishna. Otherwise there are already so many temples. So without the endeavor to bring people to Krishna consciousness, simply building temples, there's not that much value to it, actually. I mean, just like in Gujarat, there's so many temples of this Swami Narayan coming up. No one goes, hardly. In every village, there's some Swami Narayan temple. Hardly anyone goes. And if they do go, they're worse off than if they didn't go. Because it's another completely bogus idea. Forgetting Krishna, they've put someone else who they claim to be Bhagavan. So people, they think, well, they just go whatever's the local temple. We put up a temple of Krishna, they come to the temple of Krishna. That's for their benefit. But if we put up a temple of this Baba or Bappa, they'd come there also. Whatever temple you put up, they'll go. So, of course, if they come for darshan of Krishna, that's good. But the real benefit will come if they hear the message of Bhagavad-gita. And for that, we don't actually require a temple. So our building temples is purposeful if we understand what the purpose of this movement is, which is to bring people to Krishna consciousness, to make Krishna, understand Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender our lives to Him. Otherwise, whatever else we do, what is the purpose? Our movement's not meant per se to make vegetarians or Hindus or save people from being converted to Christians. Is that going on among the Hindus in this country? I guess some they get converted, right? Or to save the Indian youth from falling from their present level of degradation to an even lower level of degradation. That's not the aim of our movement. Those are good side effects. But the aim of the movement is to inform everyone that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why he should be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and what is our duty toward him, the science of the relationship with the Supreme. Yeah, you wanted to ask something?
Yes, Prabhu, actually, you keep on saying one word, Hindu, 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 and you were saying that Krishna is not Hindu. I just wanted to point out...
Did I say that Krishna was not Hindu? Actually, it's a fact, but I don't remember saying it just now.
I just wanted to point out that Hindu word is not as old as Krishna.
Yeah. Hindu is not... We won't find the word Hindu anywhere in Shastra. It's actually a derogatory term given by people who invaded and oppressed and suppressed and persecuted the people who now say, Garv se kaho hum Hindu hai. It's like, you call someone, you're a dog, you're a dog, you're a dog. And he thinks, oh, I'm a dog. Well, I'm a dog. I'm a dog. They become proud.